This is Hanging with Hayes, where non-professionals talk about life. How's it going, Kev?
It's been a day full of OSHA 10 training, so let's just say it's been wonderful.
Uh-huh. I've just been editing photos all day, but I figured I would start my first podcast really by talking about like why I wanted to start the podcast and why people were asking me to start the podcast. And I think talking about how Zach and I met, and obviously you know that story because Kevin is the reason why I'm married to Zach.
I only introduced them. They did all the hard work.
I was hanging out with this guy for a while, a couple months, and he took me to a motocross track and he was like, I want you to meet my friend Kevin. And Kevin was married, or no,
I was
you were engaged
I
still.
was engaged
You were
to my
engaged
ex-wife.
to his ex-wife, who's no longer with Kevin right now. And that was in 2012. Was it 2012?
Shit.
Yes,
Yes.
that was in 2012.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And fast forward to a year later in January, and I saw Kevin again at the gym that I worked at, and he had lost a ton of weight, and I didn't recognize him. And I had been dating another guy at this point, and he's like, I need you to meet my cousin. I don't need to meet another guy, is basically what I told him. And he's like, no, you need to meet him.
You are glossing over so much in what happened into you need to meet my cousin. Because quite frankly, we were walking up to you showing me that you had signed me up for all this shit that I was gonna have to do in training that day with you, and you had said I need a new I need a different boyfriend, one that has a nice truck. And in my head, the dude with the nicest truck that I know is my cousin. And I was like, hey, my cousin's got a nice truck. And you were like, oh, yeah? I was like, yeah, it's a diesel. And you were like, ooh, show me his truck. So I pulled out my phone, went to his Facebook, showed her the truck, and she goes, he's got a nice truck. Let me see your cousin. So I showed a picture of my cousin, and she goes, oh, he's cute.
Yeah.
So it's not just, it just wasn't you need to meet my cousin. It was, you need to meet my cousin and his truck.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. So that was in January. And then in April, I posted on Facebook that I was going to go watch my brother play baseball. And Kevin commented, and he's like, I'm bringing Zach. And I about died. I about died. And Zach and Kevin showed up. And I made a fool of myself. We went out for pizza afterwards, and pizza came out my nose because I was laughing so hard. And it was embarrassing.
Yeah, so me and Chelsea have this thing where we feed off of laughter,
Yeah,
especially since I have Tourette's.
like really bad.
So like I'll start laughing, she'll start laughing, and if we make eye contact, it's
Oh,
over. It's
bad,
over. And
bad.
we never real like obviously we hadn't hung out much, so this was like our first time truly hanging out. Besides her making me cry in the gym, and we figured out, yeah, we tend to over laugh, and that's when pizza came out her nose,
Yep,
and I think that's the first and only time I've ever seen that happen.
yep.
Very, very skilled.
But after that, Zach smoked me out in his truck and then sent me a message the day of or the day after saying, I hope I didn't smoke you out too. I'm pretty sure it was the same day.
Yeah, that was on the way to the pizza place
Yep.
because you were behind us in the
Yep.
truck and
Yep.
he laid on it in the mega cab.
Yep. And then I replied back to his message. I was like, no, it's fine. We should do it again sometime. And then we saw each other every day after that. And then 3 days later, I broke up with the guy that I was hanging out with, dating. Zach and Kevin came and moved my shit out of his house.
Well, technically, we were told to stand outside at the truck
Yeah.
while Chelsea went in, brought everything else out to us.
Yeah.
And that was quite the experience. There was some dudes inside just like hard staring me and Zach, and we're outside laughing, talking with each other because these guys are eyeballing us, and it's like, well, I haven't had a good tussle in a while, so let we're like, come on out. Just thinking this would be interesting to
Oh my
explain,
God.
if that happens, but
Oh my
you
God.
know, everybody kept their egos in check, I guess. And,
Yeah.
Chelsea just continued to bring stuff out to us and we loaded up the truck.
Yep. And then, long story short, 2 months later, I moved in with Zach and his mom and dad because he still lived with his parents. And I never left. And 11 and a half years next month. Yep. Pretty insane.
Yeah.
It's been wild because he came into my life during a season that I needed to be saved, really, essentially. I started talking on my TikTok about my very first viral video that I made was September of last year, so 2023. I put my wedding dress back on, and that was the effort that I put into for my husband's anniversary present. And that video took off. And after that, everything just kind of started rolling, and people started following me because Zach's blue collar and he's a heavy equipment operator, and I had people relate to it. And then I started writing poems, and then I started just talking about our life, and people really liked it. And I had people say, like, oh, you should start a podcast. So this is really what I wanted to do, is just talk more long form than in videos that I have been. And I think it's really cool because it'll be a nice avenue that like I can get more in depth with certain topics. And I do want to bring up, like, we do have an email for the podcast. So any topics that you want me to talk about, please email it to me. Any advice you want me to talk about, we can do that. Kevin and I were talking about doing like a podcast a week kind of thing, and then the following week answer emails if we have a lot of emails kind of thing. I do plan on having guests on, and so if you are interested in being on the podcast, please let me know also to the email or send me a message on TikTok. I will link my TikTok and all of my socials. Ultimately, I want to use this podcast as a way for people to just talk about everyday life, struggles that they have. I know I have a lot of conversations with girlfriends and other blue collar wives that their husbands are in that industry, and a lot of the struggles that they face are just being alone, loneliness, and other things like that. And I want to talk about mental health and even the uncomfortable topics like talking about mental abuse, physical abuse, like things, things of that nature. And it's not going to be an easy topic for everybody. And there will obviously be trigger warnings on those episodes that have those kinds of topics, but I definitely want it to be a conversation for people to know that they're not alone in those aspects either. But I do want to address other relationship topics as well. Just like talking about boundaries and, everything under the sun that you can talk about with marriages and relationships, because so many people do relate to the videos that I post on TikTok. And I really want people to see that there are people out there that have the same kind of problems that they do. And I'm just an everyday gal from Michigan. I'm not anybody special. I'm literally just a chick that grew up on a farm and I'm just doing this random ass stuff.
Basically, just talking the same thing that, when I was going through my stuff,
Hmm.
day after day, giving you a phone call.
I was Kevin's therapist for a minute.
Yep. Not only did I go to therapy 3 times a week, I called her every day and had therapy sessions with Chelsea.
Yeah.
And, you know, Chelsea got me through a very dark period of my life. And, a lot of things that she talks about in her videos and the opinions that she gives people when they ask about, what should I do? Like when she was telling me all that, like it made sense. And I was like, okay, like if I'm gonna pull myself out of this rut, out of the darkness, like she she's pretty good at explaining things.
It takes me a while to get to the point sometimes.
Yeah. Like
Sorry.
if you can pick out the good stuff through the stories, like even my thick-headed self, I caught the hint of what she was trying to say. Like sometimes it can be pretty straightforward and brutal because that's what you need to hear. But like I'm a dude. Sometimes you just gotta be like, okay. And yeah, that's a lot of times that's what she did was like, hey, you need to listen to me like now, and got my attention.
Yep.
And you know, this, can't can't say it enough. Like I'm happy now. Like the way my life has been for the last year and a half has been a lot better than where I was the beginning of 2021, at the end of 2021, I think it was. I've been divorced,
Yeah.
going through it. Yeah, divorce official was in July. I was going through it for 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
It was a lot.
yeah. So I I can officially say like a lot of things that we discussed therapy wise and stuff like that, like if you put it into practice and you stick with it, like there's a lot of learning, a lot of mental health growth that you got to do, and you got to evaluate yourself. But
Take accountability for your own shit too.
yeah, accountability, that's that's a hard one.
It is. It's hard for everybody, but if you can master that and realize that you need to work on your accountability, that's growth.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much you're not accountable until situations like that come up and you're like, oh, maybe they weren't the problem 100%. Maybe I was a piece of that problem.
Yeah, it definitely takes two, especially in a relationship. Like
Hmm.
journaling, going back and looking on all the conversations I had, I realized I was not as good at communicating as I thought I was.
Hmm.
And that's something I've strived to do in my everyday life, even with friends, with bosses and stuff like that. If I don't just use my body language, I don't just use my attitude, because I had an attitude. And I now verbally let them know, hey, this is what's going on in my head, because people aren't mind readers. And that was one of
No
one of
matter
my
what
big
gender.
problems. Yep. Yep.
I think it's a good to also acknowledge the fact that no relationship is ever perfect.
Amen.
You have to work at it every single day and communicate literally every single day, no matter how hard it is. You have to choose that person every single day. And it's definitely not fucking rainbows and butterflies at all times.
No,
There's no way.
no. And
You're going to have highs and you're going to have lows. And that's really what I want to talk about on this podcast and just like have a conversation. And I know there's going to be, I have a few people that do want to be on it and just talk about shit. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to start this, but I'm so nervous at the same time. So give us grace though for the first few episodes. We're still learning, obviously, but
Yeah, everything, probably the first couple episodes for a while is going to be very basic.
yep.
I'm learning, we're using StreamYard, which is very beginner friendly. It's going to look very basic, but I'm playing around with some other stuff so that way as we progress, I can become more fancy with my stuff.
Fancy. Fancy.
Especially once we start getting guests in, I can
Mm-hmm.
get an intro going and all that. I'm
Yep.
learning.
Yep. It'll take time. It'll be fine, but I'm really excited to even do this, and I'm thankful that you wanted to edit it because I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's so I'm just gonna share like got this mic. It's gorgeous. I love it. Sounds amazing. Did not realize that if I plug my headset into it while we're recording, it battles with the the sound card with the computer and I sound like a chipmunk. Everything sounds like a chipmunk.
Yes.
And I battled for 3 hours trying to figure out what is going on. Playing with buttons, downloading things,
Screaming.
Yep. And then I just unplugged the headset, plugged it into my computer, changed one or two buttons, and boom, it was perfect. And that was after 3 hours. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's small things. I'm learning.
Yep. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. I mean, you will. I'm not.
Yeah. I'll do this. I'm learning to do all that stressful stuff.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I have a bit of a background in editing from when I was younger.
Yep.
But yeah, it's coming in handy.
Yeah. I do want to say thank you to one of my sponsors, Ella's Soapbox Soaps. Without her, this podcast wouldn't be possible. So go check out her website. But thanks for coming to our actual first episode. Thanks for hanging with Hayes. Be sure to come back next week. We'll have a different topic to talk about, and make sure to check out my TikTok and my Instagram, and I'll link everything below. See you. Bye. Bye bye, Quee. Is this still recording?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh my God.